Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics. As is the tradition, I wanted to show you the tanks of Aquashella Chicago 2021. There were some really nice ones. Hope you enjoyed as much as I do. Appreciate you being here. Welcome to Aquashella Chicago 2021. This was an awesome time. I'm going to take you and just show you a couple things in the intro, because of all the Aquashellas I've ever been to, the intros that when you walk into the event are always very well done. This one was probably my favorite, and that's saying a lot because they are all very entertaining. They had cool fish, they had a light show, they had all the things that you would expect from an Aquashella, just done even better. There was so much to see at this event, and as we go through the tanks, as we go through the aquascapes and the booths, you're going to see a lot of cool fish, a lot of cool scapes, and it was just absolutely one of a kind. For those of you who came out, so glad you were there. If you haven't gotten a chance to go to an Aquashella yet, highly recommend check it out. This was cool. I didn't even know what this was at first. They were basically like dry ice bubbles or something. One hit me in the head. I'm like, it's not water, but it was a pretty awesome thing. Really, probably one of my favorite tanks was this. This was a gigantic Betta Sorority. When I asked them how many Bettas were in this 55-gallon tank, they said somewhere around 500. People often ask about Betta Sororities. We're going to do an entire video that features this tank. I've got a lot more footage, and we will answer that question. But this was definitely a very striking tank. This was also pretty cool. This is a Tankit Easy tank. It's kind of like a Z-shaped zigzag pattern that was filled with various types of peacocks. You see some OBs, a lot of color, a lot of action. This is one of those tanks when you walk by, you could look at it for a long time. This gives you a little bit better idea of the way the tank was shaped. I would love to have one of these in my house. The cool thing, I guess, when you're dealing with cichlids is it's certainly a tank that would break up line of sight and potentially reduce aggression. They also had a flower horn competition at Aquashella. For some people, flower horns aren't quite their thing. I've never had one. I'm not sure I would ever get one, but it was still interesting to watch. A lot of color. This was the largest flower horn I'd ever seen. It was well over 12 inches, maybe closer to 15. It was a very large fish, but if you're into flower horns, there were some very nice looking fish in this competition. This was the Aussie Booth. It was probably overall my favorite booth to see just because they had so many aquascapes that were so different, from freshwater to some saltwater tanks. They had dark water tanks, nano tanks, larger ones, and they really went all out. This is exactly what you'd hope to see from a booth at Aquashella, where they have lots of different options, lots of different inspiration, and this was a place where it would take a while to go through this booth. It was a rather large display with so many tanks, and every time I walked by these tanks, I saw something I didn't see the time before. It was really a sight to see. I really love this black water tank. You see the thread fin rainbows. They had some leaves on the bottom, and over the course of the weekend, the water got a little bit darker. I love this look. I know not everybody can appreciate it, but it's one of those things where enjoy it while it happens, because when it goes away, you have to work at it to get it to come back. These were some Von Rio Tetras. I actually just recently did a video about Von Rio Tetras, and so it was nice to see them in this tank. Nice setup. There's a couple different varieties of Von Rios. This was the more orange variety. Really pretty fish. Sorry for the glare on this one. This was a nice little guppy tank, very well planted. Love the use of the wood in this tank. And this was a tank that was done by the Chicago Ornamental Shrimp Society. I really like the use of the plants in this one. This was a tank that was done by freshwater.com. Really cool. You can see how big the swords get here. We've got a rather large sword in our 75 gallon that was actually in a 29, and it filled that tank from front to back, all the way from top to bottom. Got some neon tetras in here. At one point I walked by and I saw some discus. When I shot it the second time around, or at least when I came by the second time around with my camera, I did not see the discus. Maybe they were hiding, but this was a really nice looking tank. You can see that shimmering effect, which is also really cool. This tank was from Aquarium Adventure. They are a fish store in our local area. I love what they did here. This was a brackish water tank that had mud skippers and Colombian sharks actually in the water. It was really interesting. It was right across from the YouTube booth, so I got to check out the mud skippers periodically throughout the weekend, but it was really well done. And it was something that actually got me thinking I would love to keep a brackish water tank again. These mud skippers would certainly be something I would consider. There was also an aquascaping contest. These are 4-gallon tanks. They were done by mostly YouTubers. This was Ohio Fish Rescue, although he kind of delegated this out a little bit. Nice looking tank. I didn't get a chance. They didn't have them labeled, so I'm not exactly sure for the most part who did which tanks, but there were some really cool little setups here. Again, these were 4-gallon tanks, and YouTubers were allowed all day Saturday to work on these tanks, and then they went ahead and there was a People's Choice voting that happened on Sunday. So it was an interesting thing. This tank that's coming up right here was really well done. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, but I don't think this was the one that actually won. I think this might have been the second place finish. Joanna did get a chance to compete in the Aquascaping Contest. This is her tank. You can't see them, but we added some yellow Neocaridina shrimp that were actually quite active when we put them in there, and then they went hiding. She actually won 3rd place for her setup here, which I was pretty proud of her about that. I'm sure she was, I know she was happy about that as well. And this was her entry. They also had a lot of stuff for sale. This was the Flip Aquatics booth, a lot of cool shrimp. Zen Aqua, the company I mentioned in the last Aquashella video for Orlando, was here in Chicago. And they had that really cool bookshelf tank that you can see at the beginning. They had a lot of fish for sale. And so people often ask, when you go to these events, are there things for sale? Absolutely. And especially in Chicago, I would say so far, Chicago, generally speaking, tends to have a lot of fish for sale. The nice thing about this event, for those of you who are mostly freshwater, I would say 2/3 of this event was probably freshwater, and there were quite a few vendors that were selling fish, everything from cichlids, I already talked about the shrimp, and plants, lots of driftwood and different types of aquarium rocks. So pretty much almost everything you could want, somebody was probably selling it. They even had vendors that were selling shell dwellers and small African cichlids. You can see here some angelfish. So there was a lot of options here. You can see some flower horns were for sale. I don't remember what this catfish was, but I know when I talked to the owner of the booth, he said that those things can get like 2 or 3 feet. But all of these fish were for sale, so some nice peacocks. So this was a little bit of Aquashella Chicago 2021. Again, if you have a chance to check out an Aquashella, I highly recommend it. The next one's going to be in Dallas. I'm sure it's going to be a great time. Appreciate you being here, and if you enjoyed the video, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.